your guide to the truth. TheNewAmericanMedia.com.
Hello, Brian Engelman here with the New American Media. I'm pleased to be joined with Amber Lyon. Amber, thank you very much for joining us today. Well, we're here at the Free and Equal Festival, the United We Stand Festival, rather. And, you're participating in this event, and you have a bit of a unique perspective on media because they're focused on free and equal elections. But in order to get to that, the media needs to be free and equal to give people an opportunity. Yeah. You spent some time working with CNN. Can you tell us about your experience there and what you learned?
Yeah, I just learned that it's really difficult to do honest, accurate journalism in the scope of the mainstream media at this point. There are too many commercial interests, governmental interests involved, and that's what makes independent media so important, because as investigative journalists, very few of us can work for these old kind of dinosaur outlets, and so we have to create new paradigms, we have to create new media platforms, and that's what's happening, and very inspiring.
And so specifically at CNN, though, you saw where certain stories were either promoted or pushed to the side. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I just found out that the network was taking money from governments nationwide, worldwide, to air and produce positive content about those nations, essentially. And so that was
like a travel brochure, almost.
Almost, yeah, with little or no disclosure to viewers. But on CNN's behalf, it's happening all across the media. It's not just CNN, and it's because, above all, the goal of these media outlets is to make money. It's not to produce accurate, honest journalism. It's to make some cash.
Exactly. What are you doing since you left CNN now? Obviously, you're here talking today, but what are you working on personally?
Yeah, I'm studying natural medicines and really focusing on allowing people to purge trauma. I realized that after a decade of covering wars and conflicts, I was only covering the symptoms of an ill society, a mentally ill society. And so in order to really change things at the collective level, we need to heal on the individual level, because if you're not carrying around that trauma and anger, you're not going to have that manifest itself in anger towards society. And so that's the way really to start curing things and finding solutions. And so I'm just focusing on ways to connect people with natural medicines that can enable them to do so.
Excellent. Now, regarding this event, particularly with elections, so much of it is funded by, drug companies trying to push, like you said, the symptom or the cure. So much of how we treat things in the West, it's really to either mask something that's being caused by something else or whatnot, but it really is money. Can you talk about the process of how the elections manifest themselves in general, what you've seen in your lifetime as far as which candidates are propped up, which candidates are kind of pushed aside, just in general?
It's all about interest. If you're believing in the interests where the money are, you're going to be propped up. And so that's dangerous, because you're often compromising your moral compass, and oftentimes the only politicians we get that succeed in getting elected are ones that have compromised their morals and that are just voting in certain ways to get some cash for their next campaign.
Right. The ones that already sold themselves out and went along with the program. As far as healing yourself, like you said, what do you think the most important thing is that, at least Americans, we don't understand about healing ourselves, whether spiritually or physically?
I think that most Americans don't realize how much trauma they're carrying. You can get trauma starting from the moment you're born. And a lot of people, the trauma that affects people the most is childhood trauma. And so a lot of people have memories stored in their subconscious that they haven't processed yet. And so that's manifesting itself in physical illness or potential anxiety or depression. And so I think people just don't realize that there are cures out there, and natural cures, especially when it comes to psychedelic medicines like ayahuasca, psilocybin mushrooms, and people have just kind of been misled with the drug war propaganda, and they don't realize how effective and incredible these cures are.
Yeah, I've read up on ayahuasca a lot. I read a book called The Cosmic Serpent about the DNA strands and what the ropes, the Jacob's Ladder.
That one is intense. That's a little less mainstream. There's a book called Psychedelic Healing, which is great, and some others that really get into showing how psychedelics can help you purge that trauma and really just kind of hit the reset button in life and start over, following your passions and thinking with a clear mind.
And with the last election in 2012, it's either Romneycare or Obamacare. We were getting this takeover of healthcare either way because the powers that be wanted it. Are you concerned then that that our choice is to individually seek out healthy options, whether metaphysically, spiritually, and especially whether what we put into our own bodies? Do you think we're ever going to have that ability, or do you think the government's just going to come in and continue this failed war on drugs, even more on steroids now?
No, I think that the people have woken up. There's no turning back. So everything is changing. The drug war is going to be gone. I mean, look at medicinal marijuana. On the back of that will be psychedelics, and eventually all drugs will be legalized because people are realizing how ridiculous it is to have a government tell you what you can and cannot put in your body, and also to try to regulate your consciousness, like literally regulating consciousness. It's so ridiculous. So I just think what makes me really hopeful is that we're at a breaking point. A lot of people have tried all these other medicines. They haven't worked. Now they're searching for other cures. They're seeing that these natural cures work, and then they're starting to add pressure and say, why aren't these legal? And so I know the tide's going to turn, and eventually all drugs will be legalized in the United States.
Well, final question then. That was regarding the psychedelics, but what about genetically modified foods? You following this? Is this something that you're...
Yeah, I grew up in the Midwest, and it's tragic to me every time I go to a grocery store there. We're just walking down the aisles and seeing all the poison that's just being fed to the population. And you'll see a mother with her baby in the cart pushing a cart literally filled with poisons. And at that point, you have to realize that these GMO foods, there's no long-term research on what they're doing to the human body if they're also killing insects. And also processed foods. Another problem, we're not subsidizing fruits and vegetables. We subsidize beer, but and corn. And so now you go to the supermarket and you get soda cheaper than water, And so we need to really shift that money into subsidizing fruit and vegetables so they're more affordable for everyone.
Excellent. Well, if people want to stay in contact with you, follow you, where are you most prolific? Do you spend more time on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter? Where the homepage?
I have a website, reset.me, and it's a website people can come to get accurate journalism on these natural medicines and cures. And head to reset.me.
Excellent. Well, Amber Lyon, thank you very much for joining us today, and have a good time at the event.
All right, thanks.